I'm Franz. I've got I don't know, chunk of the Portland Labs team here, Evan, Andrew, Lisa, and we're joined in today's Find Out Friday by Ben Friday from Friday Designs. So possibly the most times I've used the word Friday in a single sentence. You can find Ben's work at fridaydesign.com, right? Correct. Cool little agency up on Vancouver Island, which I think of as Victoria Island because I'm from America or from the United States and I'm an idiot. But beautiful place and does interesting stuff. And one of them is this website that we are looking at here. Is that right, Ben?
Yeah, so this is something we've actually developed a few different versions of this over the years. We've been working with these guys for a long time. So this is just the latest and greatest using Concrete CMS version 9.
Awesome. Yeah, love it. I can see you've kind of taken the atomic theme and flushed it out into something that feels pretty different than how it ships. So that's really cool. And it's a website, so there's marketing pages and contact forms and research links and stuff. But it looks like one of the kind of key features that you are offering here is this kind of database of transcripts. And
actually in online, so there is the database of transcripts, but there's the finding aids. Yeah, so that finding aid right there. So that's the main database we're starting with, trying to get it to work properly.
Okay, and so what is, like, just from context, what is an aid? Like, what am I looking at here?
So this is all historical information. So any one of these finding aids is a record that includes a bunch of text information on the website, and there's also more information that they have in the archives themselves physically. So this is kind of just a card file of information they have. So each finding aid is a record in an Express database system. And we've also flushed out, so we've actually manually created all of the pages themselves. You'll see in the URL, it's all nice, they all have nice URLs. And on each of these pages, we've, this is an Express detail object that shows the data from the Express system.
Interesting. Okay, so you've got all this stuff entered into Express, and you've got, Express is kind of our low code object system. So you've got title, text, a couple spaces for photos, and a link to a page. And then I believe, in an interest to make this searchable, you have gone through and made all of these individual pages. You're trying to get this search stuff to behave in a consistent fashion.
Yep.
And that is kind of the crux of your challenge. Is you've got a search box up here, you've got a search box there. How do I get it so someone can actually search the content and find a specific Express list on that list? That's the underlying challenge here.
Yeah, well, so the site itself has a lot of information on different kinds of pages. And so, the site search is the one place where we want people just to be able to find anything on the website, just as basically we want the site search to work as you imagine it should work, essentially. And then it's becoming a real pain.
Yeah, I believe it. Well, search is always tricky, and it's never been, the core search in Concrete has never been kind of our competitive differentiator. Like the base search that you find in Concrete is just a MySQL like that is going against a couple of fields in the database. So it doesn't shock me to hear that you are running into challenges trying to make search behave. Now, it looks like we've got something. So you've gone ahead and made actual pages in the sitemap for each one of those, and then you're basically taking the Express detail block and pointing it to a specific record for each page.
Yeah, so each one of these, so there is one of the fields in the Express database is the actual site page selector, I think they call it. So it's a page selector field. This, we don't actually, that the detail page on the detail page obviously is a bit redundant, and that's that's kind of an error exactly right now. But we thought, so at first we had the Express system working just how it would work out of the box. You click on any record and it goes to like an auto-generated URL, and that definitely didn't work for the site search. So logically,
Yeah.
we're like, okay, well, we'll flush out all the pages. You know, I use the Concrete CMS importer, bulk importer, or the migration tool, I think it was called. So I used the migration tool, created the XML, and then to generate all of the pages. I think I set up a page template of some kind first, and with the Express block. Anyway, it's been a lot of work and so we basically flushed out all the pages. So we actually not manually, because we did it with the bulk with the importer, but we created all the pages in the sitemap, and then they all got linked properly to the right records. But that still didn't work. It still didn't just magically pop up in the site search as I hoped it would. And so now we've been, I've actually, I'm not like a super genius developer myself. And so a lot of times I rely on help I can hire. And I've actually hired 3 different guys, and they have not been able to make this work. And usually, it's these are people I've worked with before, and they're very adept, and they usually nail it out of the park, no problem. This particular problem is, there's one, actually, the main guy I like to use, he didn't even want to touch it.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, Express is not putting the data in the same place that this search field is looking for it. So at its heart, it's kind of like I think you said it well in an email, and just a little bit of a square peg round hole situation.
Yeah.
That said, I can think of at least one way to do this, and I bet you Andy can think of more. I don't know, Andy. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess I have a couple questions. One, so this page that we're looking at right now is actually searching Express, right? Like
Correct.
It's using an Express list.
That is built in. That's all the built-in stuff. Yeah.
And so would you say, aside from the problem, aside from the quirks of showing the detail page in the page record, which we could actually help you remove, like there is a built-in way to do that. But that also could just be something to get to at some point.
I just noticed it now, sort of thing.
Would you say that this is working, but the unified search, obviously the unified search of searching all the pages and having the page content show up is not working? But would you say that this is actually working, or does this have something?
No, the list is fine. There's no problem.
The list is fine.
It's really just the search. No, I love Concrete CMS, man. I've been using it for 12 years, and this is the only thing I've ever come up against that I actually need your help on, essentially, because most of the times I build gorgeous sites and nowadays when it comes with Atomic, it's so nice, so much stuff is just in the box. So we really love Concrete CMS. So really it's I tried to persuade my client, oh hey, you can just use the search on the finding aids page, but they insist that they really want what they've had in the past, and that's a unified search for the whole site. So I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
It is fair.
Yeah. So I think with that in mind, I think you got a response in that forums thread that was talking about a unified index, which is not something we do. We actually in early versions of Concrete, before any of this other stuff existed, we did have a unified. We had a separate search index from the pages table, and it was really slow. And honestly, it tried to do full text searching and failed at it. I mean, in ways that were comical. You couldn't search for words that were shorter than 4 characters or 5 characters. And so you explain that to a developer, they can conceptually understand why that might be difficult. But you explain that to a person why they can't search for
it has to be 5 characters.
Yeah, it's that's not gonna work, man. Google can you've seen how much misspelling I could do on Google and still knows what I mean. We have to do a little
spoiled us all.
Yeah. So now as a result of that, the built-in search is very it's very utilitarian. It only searches pages, and it searches block content on the pages in a pretty utilitarian way, but with some major limitations. And one of those is that each block type has to be coded in order to return its text content to the page generalized indexer. And I think you were getting somewhere with your approach in the seeing now how you have built it. I was a little worried coming into this because I saw, I think, an earlier version of the code where you had set it up using the built-in express detail functionality that has that sort of that one single URL entry point where they all render on a single page, and like they all come in and they don't have their own pages. They just have one details page, and then it just renders whatever ID you pass into it. And yeah, that will pretty much never work with this sort of, with the outer page search like that, or at least not anytime soon. But having seen how you've rebuilt it since then, or maybe I'm just seeing it in person.
No, you're
like,
right.
Yeah, since you have it as separate pages, like we actually do have a chance at fixing this to the way that you want it, because you were definitely getting somewhere with wanting to implement get searchable content on the express block, like the details block. Like that is definitely the way that we ought to fix this, because ideally what that block should do is it should not, right now it doesn't do any of this, so it just doesn't return any content when Concrete tries to index that page, which is lame. And so what it should do is, if it finds a specific entry like you've set it up to do, it should look at that entry, get all the attributes from that entry, try to get their text-based versions and stick those in the content. And like, you know, it looks like, I mean, like that's a tall order for any developer. Like that would be a tall order for me to do. Certainly give it a try, but like it's not, but it could be done in such a way that we could build that into the core. Your team could have a, you know, patched version that does that, you know, even before it gets into the core, but knowing that as you upgrade to 9.2.2 or whatever the case may be, you would have a chance at making that work. Yeah, so I mean, we could.
Look, so that makes sense to me. I mean, what you're saying is, look, for the built-in Concrete search to work, this block and what is in that main nav, that is looking at content in a MySQL database. It's doing really very, you know, kind of 1980s traditional Boolean type search against indexed fields. Yeah. And the problem here is just the content in this block is not being marked as indexed.
Yeah, it's not being put into that index because, yeah, like
it's just an instance of this express block that's like, go find this record. And so that express detail, whatever this block is called, express entry detail needs to be taught to say, well, look, if I am pointing to a specific one and not a dynamic one, which is how it often is used, then I should stick that in the database somewhere so our base search can work. And you're saying, look, if that was a pull request, we would certainly approve it. It's not, you know, an hour of work before lunch, but it's not a bad idea.
I mean, it's not. I don't think it's one of those things where I know that I could do it. I suspect Corbin could do it. There's probably there's very smart people in our community, so I know that the others could do it. But it's not. It's not surprising that you might have gotten stuck on this, even though you definitely had already isolated a way to solve the problem. Like that get searchable content method is definitely the one that ought to be implemented for that block. But I can see from the code snippet on the forums, like I think it's doing it in such a way that might be a little bit more, like, what's the right term? Like the way we would solve this, I think, would be it might not get you the perfect results for actually rendering the search. I know one issue with this that we've had in the past with problems like this is like, we'll have people that will open bug reports and say, well, the search page doesn't render the content in the right order because when it goes into the search index, it's indexing this area before this area, and that's not how my areas are showing up on the page, so it doesn't display it right. It's like, well, dude, it's not meant to display content, period. It's meant to be a search index. Google doesn't display the full content of a page in its search results. Like, who knows what format that data is coming in? So what all I'm saying about that is that, like, if you're hoping to get the results to render in a kind of human readable way.
No.
Yeah, it's really just bringing them back.
Like
Yeah. And like, no, so we can, because like I saw the get searchable content method that you're starting to work with, and it was based off of the rendering functions. And I suspect someone had just found those functions from within the view file, which is totally fair way to approach it. But I think we would do it in a pretty significantly different way. We probably, I suspect, grab all the attributes joined to whatever entry is bound to that, what is bound to that block, and then we would try to get their text representation. Like, there's a method that will get an attribute values text representation that we use for like CSV export, and we would just get all those and stack them up in the search index field, and that would at least get, you know, all this data that's here. Like, you would be able to search for, you know, Klondike as one of the terms here.
Yeah,
and it would
that would be more than better. Yeah, that'd be fine.
I have a completely different solution to this problem. May not surprise you to find. I bet you Andrew already knows what it is. I don't know. Stepping back, like I have to ask, like, well, why are we like, it's just really easy, particularly smart engineers, like, you get kind of solving a specific problem that was set up for you, and you can come up with a good solution for it. And I think everything that Andy says makes sense. So we should probably do in the big picture. But I got a question, like, do we need to be here? I'm thinking about what you said with the look. You know, we had all this stuff in Express, and for, you know, those of you that don't know, if I take this page out of edit mode and I jump over, Express exists as a central content repository in the dashboard. So you have this nice list of all the stuff. I can go into one of these things, and here's the data, you know, so you can train your client, like, hey, just put your stuff here. And I'm sure when you did that, you felt like, this is going to be great. I'm giving them like a database they can manage, and I don't have to pop the page in edit mode. This is just centralized and makes sense. And because of this search problem, you have now gone down this rabbit hole of having to recreate for each entry that you make here. There's now a process where, and you did this with XML to begin with, which is nice, like, you automated this. But if someone wanted to come in here and add a new family aid, my understanding is they would have to first make the Express object without linking to the page, then make the page, then put that Express entity on it, join it to the Express entity they make, go back to the Express object and add the link to the page, which just seems like an awful lot of work for something that is like, well, because we wanted to make search work. My thought is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you can build this in such a way where you don't have to have an actual concrete page for every listing. You can just have a single summary detail page that kind of passes a variable from the list to the sub page to get that up. So if I were to come here and look at your paging interface, this would all still look the same. When I click through here, instead of taking me to finding aid / this pretty name, it would be like finding aid / detail ? ID blah blah blah.
I think that's how they had it at first, like, probably
totally,
for this very reasonable problem.
Same, right? I add content to Express in the dashboard. It shows up as a new listing. That's great. And then we went into this rabbit hole of like, well, wait a minute, search here works, but search there doesn't work. And now Ben has just been, kind of adding cruft to the process that can't make his client delighted. I would argue, or I would offer, that you could get rid of this search, and this search, and replace it with a single search powered by something like Google or any number of other third-party search indexing tools that actually just follow the content on your site and give you all of that natural language, delightful auto completion and weighting and things that people are just used to, and just not have this problem at all. You could still leave this search if you want like a finding aid specific search,
No,
but you could just say my
I'd be happy
site-wide
to
search is
remove
Google, right?
I'd be happy to
And
remove that one just because it adds confusion. I think like I would like to just have the one unified. So yeah, no, I like your idea. I like your idea.
and you can see I like it because when you come to my site, this is Google.
Yeah,
Because I just can't. It's just so much easier. And depending on, I mean, yeah, if you don't want ads on here, you're going to get to pay.
yeah.
But not a lot. And if you don't care about ads, I feel like they still have a free model. And there are in between ways. Like if you want to manage your own index and feed stuff to it, you can do things like look into Elasticsearch, and there's Yext. I don't know. There's half a dozen search type appliance solutions that all have competitive pricing, and then you kind of sidestep this
Sure.
like the never ending pushback from the client that you'll get of like, well, I'm not seeing the results I would expect to, because none of us are going to beat Google on our own. So just
what's
stick it up there and be done.
Integration of Google? What does that look like? Is there an add-on for that, or what's the?
I mean, that's pretty simple. That is, how do we do this? I mean, this is like literally
I think
JavaScript, I think.
Yeah, we just took their embed code and put it in a page, like with the HTML block for our site. I think what you would probably have to do, practically speaking, from the top navigation bar block, you would probably, I'm not sure if you can pass get parameters into this page that Google will see and then just pre-populate. It wouldn't shock me if you could, because that's got to be a pretty common use case to launch search from a secondary location. If so, you might have to modify the top navigation bar view template in order to change the query parameter that gets sent in to be something else, or just link it over and not include the, like, just have an icon that links over instead of the field. Any number of ways you could approach that, or just put the Google snippet in there, and maybe it can be configured to redirect to a secondary page. There's got to be any number of ways to do it, but we just put an embed code in a HTML block.
So I'm on the add programmable search engine to your site page. So I didn't know they made it that easy.
They constantly change this offering, so I think that doesn't help. But
it's
right
Google.
now,
It'll go away.
It's good.
So programmable search engine is like a Google service, I guess. Never heard of that one before, but I know what you mean about changing. Obviously, that's just the Google thing. But that's fine. That's life. Well, I think that's a pretty good solution, actually. Honestly, that does sidestep a lot of stuff. It stops me from requiring any more developers. I can probably implement this next week and have my clients finally satisfied, because this has been since like
February. Sure. No, I have seen that post. I didn't realize it was still around and kicking. I mean, it's definitely something that is a hole in Express, and honestly, the front end aspect, while it works, is a little phoned in as well. Like, not the idea behind it is solid, and I think what you have done in order to make it work is how it should just work, period. Like, for a long time, it's been desired to be able to control Express results in one spot and actually have the front end act as though you've made real pages for them. Maybe you can't edit them through the CMS because they aren't real pages yet, but the URLs would look like pages. They would show up in the sitemap.xml. They would show up in the search. Like that, none of that happens today unless you make real pages and then tie the two together, which is certainly something you can do, as we've seen, but there's definite holes. And it's also like, I thought this was supposed to be, this is called Express. This is not that much Express when I have to do twice the work. So,
but Google will be able to deal with it all centralized, right? Like if you go back to the way you had it before, Google will find this page. It'll work through this page interface. It'll do all of its magic AI on the content and problem solved. And then, and Andy's right. Like now your user, your content administrator experience is less horrific, which I think is pretty important. And I want to believe that by feeding this stuff to Google, it's probably going to show up better at Google on
Sure.
organic searches there anyways, right?
Yeah,
So
for
it's
people,
like,
for visitors that are coming to the site. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah, so Google will probably rank you a little bit better because you spent some time optimizing this stuff for Google. And then last but not least, you won't have to explain to your client why search is hard because they'll just have the I've been spoiled by Google joy on their own site.
Yeah, and another idea actually occurred to me while we were talking about this. I mean, since I have, familiarity with the XML import for the migration tool, I mean, I could get out of Express too. Like I could, create all the pages, with their content. Like a lot of this stuff doesn't get modified very often. It's not super dynamic. It's really, it's a lot of it is historical information. It's not changing. It's just really a card file for all the information they have physically at their space. So, I mean, fighting Express, like I really could have probably at some point just decided, hey, I don't really need Express for this, and just created all the pages and with their content as well.
That's true. You could have used attributes at the page level, right? So you could have made a couple new attributes, and so you could still do, there's a page attribute block, which I think does you have a better chance of that feeding stuff into the search engine. And you could do, I don't know if these are their own page type or not, but you can kind of set up a composer template so the client has something that feels like a form.
Well, I don't know if it's composer, but yeah, it does have. It's a page template of some kind anyway, I think.
Yeah. So if you had those fields, I think where the hope with Express is like if you are joining objects together in some way, like like here's
like
kind of like those
marinas.
Yeah, like boats and marinas, or
I remember.
no, yeah, but like we use it for this locations database here. So like, each one of these is an Express object, and then they also join to programs that use it. Sometimes there's multiple programs, so there's a little bit of like a relational data model there.
Yeah, Express is amazing, man. And like honestly, for like I've been a website developer since I was 16. That's almost 30 years now. And so, I built lots of PHP, MySQL, database systems with CMSs, my own custom CMSs for a long time. And I built all kinds of relational databases that same kind of thing, like a boats and marinas kind of situation. And when Express finally came out, I was like just overjoyed, honestly. Like it was the coolest thing ever. And it was a missing piece, honestly, for most CMSs don't have something like this. No CMS have something like this, right?
Yeah,
so
I mean, it's
awesome.
important to have. Yeah, and I think with the API that we've built in version 9.1, some reason
9.2, yeah.
Yeah, 9.2. You can now get stuff out of there and really use it as a headless CMS in pretty cool ways. So,
oh, wow, cool.
Awesome. Okay, we've gone a little long, but I feel like we have in fact left you better than we found you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's good to hear. If you want to submit a GitHub issue saying, hey, it would be cool if the Express entity block actually seeded the search, I think that probably be a healthy thing. I mean, I do think that what Andy described would be good to have in the big picture. So probably don't want to lose track of that entirely. I know if you do, John will immediately jump in and say this should be built in an entirely different way. And that will be a delightful debate to have on that issue. But yeah, good stuff.
I really appreciate you guys, man. This is, it's even the simplicity of the Google thing. It just didn't even occur to me. So I really appreciate just like, having the other minds just kind of chime in and give me some ideas.
Always happy to help you find a way to get there with less effort. That's important, I think, to keep these things moving. Wait a minute, why are we doing all this again? Maybe we could just walk there. All right. Awesome. Hey, it's been a real pleasure having Ben Friday on Find Out Fridays this Friday. I feel like this was an absolute win. So thank you for your time, Ben, and bringing this real world problem to our attention. And thank you, Andrew, for understanding it so quickly and coming up with the correct way to solve it. And I don't know, thanks, Evan and Lisa, for looming in the background. and being
Always.
another Canadian. make us feel
Always.
comfortable
Yeah, that's
having
true.
more
We
than one
needed the Canadian
on
support.
the phone. All right, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.